everybody, and welcome to a special holiday edition of Boobies and Newbies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today's romance review marks the 6th episode in Boobies and Newbies' annual holiday special, The 12 Days of Boobsmas. That's right, we are officially halfway through our month-long celebration of all things holiday romance. Now, as a reminder, all December long, we are slaying with 12 holiday-themed books, 12 mini pods, and 12 giveaways. Now, by the time this episode airs, we'll probably have just wrapped up our giveaway opportunities, but of course, the best way to keep up with future reads, giveaways, and so much more is to follow Boobies and Newbies across the socials at Boobies Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm also on TikTok at Real Kelly Ray because they think I'm making porn. If you feel like spreading a little extra dose of Boobsmas cheer, you might consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or supporting the podcast on Patreon, both of which would definitely make my Christmas a little jollier. Now, in addition to this year's Boobsmas reads, I'd also like to take a moment to plug my own holiday novella, Meet Me in Los Feliz, which is available now. So grab your ebook or paper copy and maybe an extra one or two for the romance readers in your life. Last but not least, if for some reason you've missed any of our previous podcast episodes, or if you feel like you just can't wait until the next Boobsmas episode drops and need something to tide you over, you can find all of our episodes along with so much more on our one-stop shop of a website, boobiesandnewbies.com. And now, please join me in welcoming my 6th day of Boobsmas guest, a fellow podcaster you will know all too well, seeing as she's been on Boobies and Newbies quite a few times, and we just did a live show together in Los Angeles. She is the host of Too Stupid to Live, a podcast that reviews romance reads, $5 and under. Please welcome the lovely Becky Feldman.
Kelly, you all know me too well. Just too well. And people are like, guys, don't turn off. Please don't turn off. Because it's like, oh, Becky again. But I force myself every year to be a guest of Boobsmas. I force it on you.
It's a tradition. It's become one of our holiday traditions together.
It really has. And I appreciate you humoring me of just like, I want to be on as many podcasts as possible.
No, you are always welcome. I think it's gotten to the point where, honestly, I don't know why we don't just merge our podcasts, because I have you on here enough times. We do enough things together. We're part of all the same like private message groups where we chat all the live long day. So
Absolutely. It's like, I guess like, how like Grey's Anatomy is, or like the Law and Orders, they have like the crossover events where it's just a night of law and ordering. I don't know how that looks with us, but we should really do like special epic Boobies and Newbies meets TSTL, like wild spectacular
Too Stupid to Boobies.
Yeah.
Boobies and stupids.
Like, are you ready for your boobies to get stupid?
It's so true. It's something I look forward to every year, and especially because during Boobsmas, I always make a valiant effort to get at least one Hanukkah read in, or at least Boobsmakkah read in. And we've done a few of them together, and I know that you've covered several on your show too, because I will never forget the one about the motorcycle guy in, I want to say Atlanta.
Georgia. Yeah. I think it's Atlanta. Yeah.
So good. So what's coming up on Too Stupid to Live? Are you doing anything for the holidays?
Yes. So we are going to do a Hanukkah romance with my friend Aisha.
Brilliant.
It's a lot more bonkers than the previous Hanukkah ones, let me tell you. I haven't started the book yet. I'm like, I think it's going to be my favorite book based on the title alone, but who knows? But yeah, I feel like every year, like I am obsessed with like Hanukkah romances. And this year, I actually tried to find a local rabbi who would be a guest.
Oh.
But they were all very nice when they got back to me, but no such luck.
Oh, no. Now, but did they say why? Were they busy or, because understandably so, or were they just not up for the task at hand?
I think that they were busy. That's what it seemed like,
Okay.
because like it took a few, like, it took a few days to get back to me, but then when they like wrote an email, it was like a longer email, so it felt like I got a sense of busyness as opposed to like, no, disgusting,
And they still responded. Like they still replied to your emails, which, let's be honest, we know is already a step above so many in today's now and age. Like how many jobs have you applied for, or people you've reached out to that you've just genuinely never heard back from ever again?
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten to the point where like friends won't email me back, and it's just like, okay.
Guess I won't be seeing you then.
Yeah, like, all right. I guess this is the thing. This is a societal behavior.
Well, maybe next year, because if reading Rosie Dannon's book, The Intimacy Experiment, which has a rabbi main character, if that's given me any hope, I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? If you're going to get anybody of any faith to come and read a romance, it's going to be a rabbi.
Yeah. And the thing is, I also found like there's other, one in a million Jewish romances for other Jewish holidays. So like,
nice.
It's like, oh, there is something kind of interesting to seeing what, someone would think of. I mean, I have done a Passover romance, which was fun and ridiculous.
And we've talked about how we want there to be more Passover romance.
Yeah, which is so weird because if there's any holiday that's not romantic, it's Passover for me personally. Like, and there's other Jewish holidays which again like are, celebrated in terms of like we survived. There's really nothing like
good on you.
Exactly. And so, but then you have this romance novel. So I'm like thinking, I have it in the back of my mind to try the rabbi reach out again for a Jewish romance that isn't necessarily Hanukkah, but is a romance.
Yeah, because this has got to be a crazy time of year for anybody. So that seems understandable that it's probably a more difficult time of year to do anything or make plans with anybody. But yeah, you know what I do love though is because I remember the first time we did a Boobsmas episode, it would have been like, like 3 or 4 years ago at this point. And I know that we've done previous Hanukkah ones and we've talked about how we wish there were more Hanukkah romances. And obviously I still hold that to be true. I still don't think there are enough, but I do like that we've gotten to the point where now it's not every podcast reviewing the same Hanukkah romance every episode in December, because that's what it used to be. It used to be that, oh, we get one a year, and this is the one that everybody is going to review in December. So I like that there are options now. We are starting to see more variety.
Yeah, it's a cool thing because I think in the past, and again, I'm maybe putting words into people's mouths, but at first it was like almost like this kind of gimmick of like, there's so many Christmas books, I'm gonna do a Hanukkah book, ha ha ha. And it was almost like it was a gimmick, and it was almost like not kind of like monster romance how it was, where it's like, what if I wrote a book about like someone falling in love with an orc, and then all of a sudden it's like now a real kind of genre, and it's like, yeah, like, oh wait, people love this stuff.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm glad to see it on the rise, and I hope that will continue. So, maybe by next year we'll have a monster Hanukkah romance.
Oh, yeah. Well,
because really, let's be honest, that's what's still missing.
Well, listen, get ready for the, hopefully it works out. Whenever I'm like, whenever I think about like upcoming episodes of TSTL, I'm always like, something's going to happen, it's going to fail. But wait and see for the TSTL Hanukkah episode. Not monster, but not human.
Oh, you got me curious, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I will wait until that comes out. Hopefully by the time this episode drops, it will be either out as well or just around the corner.
Yes.
So something to look forward to. Where can everybody find, follow, listen to TSTL, all of the above?
Yeah, so you can listen to TSTL with your ears. Sorry, that was a dumb joke. The main website is tstlpodcast.com. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and you can find the podcast on Instagram and Twitter at TSTL Podcast.
Well, let's go ahead and we'll jump into discussing our book. Although first, what I'm going to do is introduce the book, and then we have a little game planned just to spice things up a little bit, because this book is somewhat spicy, but not the spiciest. So we'll spice it up with a game. Hopefully nobody's taking a shot every time I say the word spice in this episode, because otherwise you're down for the count at this point. So
I just hope you're inhaling cinnamon every time it happens. Like,
yeah, a shot of cinnamon right to the sinuses.
Just sucking up some pepper. Yeah.
Well, today's reading selection is Snowbound in Her Boss's Bed by Marcella Bell. And this contemporary interracial romance was published in October 2022. It's available on Amazon for $4.99 Kindle edition, which makes it TSTL approved, right? $5 and under.
100%, baby.
And I will admit, I received an early copy of this book via the publisher on NetGalley, so thank you for that. I also think we don't read enough category romance on this podcast, which is why I was super excited to see that Harlequin was putting out multiple holiday romances that revolve around holidays other than Christmas. In fact, I do believe that our final book that we'll be reading for Boobsmas this year, I know that it's a category romance, and I know that it celebrates Kwanzaa, which is a first for boobies and newbies. I haven't read a Kwanzaa romance before, so I'm excited about that. But I think that's also a Harlequin present.
Yeah, they're getting the memo. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And of course, we have our friends Bree and Aaron over at Categorically Romance Podcast, who always keep us up to date with category romance. Bree has also been doing a lot of watching of Hallmark, Lifetime, Netflix, Christmas movies, and
she's
it's just
doing
been
the hard work. Yeah,
she's doing the work for us, because she's basically watching all of them and then reporting back so that we know which ones we want to spend our time watching. So I've been thoroughly enjoying those, and honestly, I'm assuming that by the time this episode comes out, she will have binged through another 30 of them. So please, everybody go check out our friends at Categorically Romance Podcast. They've got the hookup when it comes to holiday romance for category, and also holiday romance that you can watch at home. So love them. Before we talk about the book, I have got a game for you. And it relates to some of the items, activities, things, places, people, what have you, that you find in this book, Snowbound in Her Boss's Bed. And I will say, just for the record, not a lot happens in this book.
It's a more of a tell, don't show. In terms of sex, at least.
We'll have things to say for sure. And
sure.
But here's the thing. It's not that I dislike books where they're like low tension, low angst, like not a lot happening. Let's be real. I wrote one that is very low in conflict in general. And so sometimes, especially around the holidays, I find those very comforting. I think this will be a quick read for a lot of people because, I did some skimming as I was reading. One thing that I noticed a lot of, though, was food. And so, of course, you're going to find a lot of tasty options here in your rendition of tit or tat. So get ready. Here we go. And we're kicking it off strong with something delicious, and that is jelly donuts or cruller donuts.
Ooh, so tit means I like, and tat means
it's just
what?
Or that. You just pick one. I'm sorry, I didn't properly explain the game.
It's totally fine. Like, it's like I thought, like, you know how like people are like, oh, that's lit, now.
That's
and
tit.
I just got around to people using that phrase, which I know is probably from the 1976. And so I'm like, oh, I guess are people saying that's tit and tat? I believe it. I believe it.
We can start that trend if you want.
Sure. Yeah. That's
okay.
Or no, but people are like, oh, that's the tits. Haven't people said that before? Or am I crazy?
Yeah. No, they have. Well, and tat, I'm like, oh, like tattoos? Like, because I think tattoos are also great. Like, these are two of my favorite things, tits or tats. Like, so no, let's keep it to would you rather, this or that, because we know that tits and tats are both excellent options. So it would be unfair for us to assign a negative connotation to either one of those.
I know, really. It's really unfair to the donuts out there.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
Jelly donuts or cruller donuts? Which one?
Okay, I think right now, because the climate is a little dry, I would go for jelly donuts because I feel like crullers, I just need a little, they sometimes tend to dry out. So I feel like at the moment, I need a little moistness in my mouth. I mean that innuendo-ly and hungrily. I'm going for a jelly donut, baby.
Okay, nice.
What about you?
I can't say that I really eat much of either because I'm very much like a cake donut person. I like the like thick cake. And I do love chocolate, although it doesn't have to be chocolate. In fact, I just went to Blue Star Donuts, which is like one of the fancier donut options that we have here in Portland. And I know it's spread beyond Portland because I think it's even in LA now. They had their seasonal options out, and I got a gingerbread old-fashioned donut.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, for me, like the ultimate donut for me is a Boston cream donut. Like, I think like if that were an option in this game, that would have been
Hands
chosen.
down.
But, you know, and again, because there's like goop in the middle, I'm pudding or whatever it's called. But like, you know, there's like, I love like a hearty donut, like a cakey, something in the middle. Like I want my donut to be a meal in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're not meals, but I want them to be meals.
They can be. I like, because I think of like if you go and get like a donut and coffee for breakfast, like to me that's a breakfast. But you're right. When I lived with my roommate Megan, it was like we would go get donuts because we lived around the corner from a 24-hour donut place. And like an hour later, she'd be like, okay, what are we having for breakfast? And I'm just like, bitch, what? Like we just ate.
Yeah. I know, because like there's something about donuts, like certain donuts that like are very light, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, okay, well, that, you know, I would need something in addition to this. But I feel like with like a jelly or Boston cream, like you don't necessarily need to worry about an hour later being like, oh wait, now I'm hungry
again.
Yeah.
Okay. You like your filling. I appreciate that.
I love a filling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Switching it up a little bit, and that is holidays by the beach or holidays in the snow.
By the beach. I'm a sunshine person. I grew up with snow. I had that experience. And I think in this book, does it glorify snow and make it sound appealing? Of course. But I'm going to be true to myself and say holiday by the beach.
Fair enough. Brisket or matzo ball soup?
Oh my God, Kelly. Now this is a Sophie's choice.
Oh,
I'm so
no.
sorry. Yeah, this is hard because that's very difficult. Both are.
Well, they're both great. Fuck. They're both delicious.
They are both the ultimate comfort foods for me. The ultimate, like, when I would get together with my family, you know, either for Jewish holiday or just like whatever, it's like we start with matzo ball soup and then like we'll have a nice brisket. Fuck, Kelly, you really put me in a difficult situation. I think right at the moment I'm going to go with brisket because sometimes depending on where you get your matzo ball soup, sometimes they can make it a little wrong. I feel like with brisket you can't go wrong. Well, you can, but like
it's
meat,
harder to go wrong with like a bad brisket is usually still like fine. Like you'll still eat it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, I mean, brisket is good. I've never made brisket before. I do think it's very easy to make. You know, like if you put it in a crock pot, like I imagine it's easier. Even if it were bad, it's still like a hunk of meat. And who doesn't love a hunk of meat? Well, I know a lot of people don't. Actually, I get that. I'm trying to be plant-based too. But it's more digestible than I think a bad matzo ball for me.
Okay. No, I understand where you're coming from on that. And I knew that one was going to be a tough one because I'm like, well, it's tough for me. Like, I think these are both delicious things. So
yeah, you just made every, person in my family
cry
roll in their grave. Yeah, they're all cried. They're like, I cannot believe they're going to listen to this and be like, I cannot believe you made our Becky choose between such a difficult decision.
Terrible.
But listen, you woke my brain up and you forced me to challenge myself, and I'm glad I did.
I mean, here's my follow-up question is there a way to combine the two? Like, I don't know what the base is for matzo ball soup, but I kind of wonder, like, is there a way to like put meat like in the matzo ball soup?
I'm just going to go ahead and say I so appreciate that suggestion.
I don't know if it'll work.
I would never do that. I mean, maybe like chicken in a matzo ball soup because the broth is usually chicken based. But like, I just don't see like brisket being in like a chicken broth based.
I've clearly been watching too much like Top Chef, where they're like, okay, now go and make this with a bag of Cheetos and a ribeye.
Yeah. No, I get it being a Top Chef thing. Like, listen, Kelly on like it's a very good question because soup you can put anything in. You can, mix and match. I get the question. I feel like this is probably the one soup that's a soup you wouldn't mix with brisket.
Fair enough.
Could be wrong though.
Fair enough.
Could be wrong.
Well, and if somebody listening is like, I'm going to do it and let you know, please do. I would love to know the result.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if it's good, I'll eat crow. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I will be like, okay, then I take back like I have a strong conviction. I hear my voice right now, but I am 100% willing to be wrong.
Now, I'm wondering if this question will be just as controversial because I feel like most of my friends who celebrate Hanukkah usually have a very immediate answer with this one. And to me, it seems more complicated, but I'll put it to you, and that is latkes with applesauce or sour cream.
I knew you were going to ask that, and I'm an applesauce person.
Okay.
That said, sometimes with like, if someone were to make like there's like sweet potato latkes, or like cheese latkes or zucchini latkes. And I think like, I mean, growing up, like my family, we like food, we like, making different things all the time. And so like, I feel like sour cream with a sweet potato latke is enjoyable, but for like a very regular normal like russet potato latke, I am an applesauce person all the way.
That's so interesting because I've only ever had it with russet potatoes. I haven't had it in a different way. But in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, sweet potato would go great with applesauce because it's like a little more on the sweeter side and like maybe some cinnamon. And then like I like a good baked potato with like some sour cream on top. So like I'm almost of the opposite mind, but I've also only had it one way.
Sure. I mean, I think my brain and my taste buds come from like a kettle corn mentality where it's like I love sweet and savory at the same time. And so it's like, okay, well, the sweet potato, the sweetness is already there. Get that sour cream in. And then with the regular potato, like the salt savory is already there.
Gotta add some sweet. Okay.
Gotta add some sweet. Yeah.
This is good. I feel like I've known you for so many years now, but I feel like I'm still learning things about you. So I'm like, okay, savory, sweet. That's Becky.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm exposing myself here, and
I love it. I've got one more foodie related one and then some unfoodie related ones. So let's go with this one. Will make more sense if you read the book, but keep in mind that it relates to wine, and that is melon and floral or olive and cherry.
The melon and floral. Like I was just like when he offers that to her, and I was just like, oh God, the like olive and cherry rosé does not
terrible.
It sounds really bad. I want like wine looks like it should taste like sugar water. I want it to taste like sugar water.
Well, and it's
sugar watery.
I have to say, this dude had like the most interesting. Like he was very specific when it came to like his palate. Like usually you get somebody offering somebody wine, and I'll say this in a book but also in real life, and if like the person offering you the wine is usually a man, it's usually like, do you want white or red? Do you want red or rosé? She was offered 3 different flavor profiles after being offered rosé. Like there were multiple rosé options, which I just don't know. Apparently this is just people with money. I don't know.
I mean, it's like this guy was like a sommelier. Like I was like, I just know red, white, rosé, and like, and I always thought, and I love rosé. That's like kind of my go-to because it's pink. I like pink. But I always thought that like wine connoisseurs like dismissed rosé. I could be wrong.
Too. I did too. I thought it was kind of like, oh, that's just like the lame ass blend, like between the two sort of thing. That
like it's a basic bitch kind of
maybe that's
drink.
just how
Yeah.
it's been marketed. And so that's how
Mhm.
I think of it too. But it was the same thing when they discussed how she's putting on this event, this big gala, and they're going to have this fancy dinner. And she's like, yeah, we just decided to go with the chef's specialties, which were filet mignon, a risotto, and I think the other one was like a
Mhm.
fish, like salmon
Yeah.
or something. And he's like, absolutely not. How horrendous. And I'm just like thinking, this man is turning down a risotto and filet mignon because he doesn't think it's like creative or good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. He was very like this guy was like very much a foodie. Like times a billion as
So
he is a
funny.
billionaire. It's very funny because I think like California has like it's the cuisine here has circled back where it's like if you do serve a burger at a gala, you are so innovative.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
do, it's the most innovative thing you
Because
can
it's
do.
not just going to be like a beef burger. It's going to be made of
No.
like, it used to be pork belly. It wouldn't be that. It used to be
Hmm.
Wagyu. Like those were like the two big
Yeah.
ones. But now it would probably be like some kind of raw fish. Like it'd be like a tartar
Hmm.
burger with,
Yeah.
this special vegetable that can only be grown in like this one region of Peru,
Right.
and
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
sauce made by the chef of this restaurant in like
Mhm.
downtown Los Angeles. Like you're right. Like it's so funny how we kind of take things that are old hat and then make them like,
Mhm.
oh, but if you do it this way,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
fancy.
exactly. Yeah. That was like the one thing in this book that I found unbelievable.
I've got two left, and I feel like these are
Mhm.
probably easier to choose from. However,
Okay.
we'll see. And that is sex in the hot tub or sex in the library.
I'm going to go with library. I find I get very anxious with things that are slippery.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, there's slippery and then there's like ooh slippery and get anxious with the ooh slippery parts.
Yeah, and anybody who's listened to this podcast knows that I am like very anti sex in water. Like just absolutely not. Shower, that's
Yeah.
fine. You're not submerged.
But it's
Okay.
slippery.
Yeah.
It makes me but it just like makes me anxious.
Yeah.
Like
Fair enough.
like yeah.
I understand. And then last one
Mhm.
is downtown Los Angeles penthouse or Colorado Rockies chalet.
I am going to be a downtown LA penthouse. The chalet, I mean, here's the thing in the book, they have both options, which is great. But I feel like I can't be in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It makes because like what if you need to like it's like these little thing of like, well, what if you get a UTI and you have to go to like
Back to the water sex.
urgent care? Exactly. Yeah, cuz well that's what's in my brain now.
Yeah.
And so like, at downtown LA there's an urgent care right there with like in Aspen seemingly it seems like you would need to kind of trek.
And these are the things, you're right,
And
you need to
yeah.
consider when you're having sex in hot tubs on the regular.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed. Yeah.
oh gosh, no, great point. I've driven through
Mhm.
Aspen as well, a couple of times, and yes, beautiful, but
Mhm.
a little too remote for me. I'm with you on that. I do like this idea that they do in the book of just spending the holidays there. Like there is something nice
Yeah.
about that and very
Mhm.
serene. And if you've got the money to do it right, I mean,
Yeah. Like, I mean, but like with this guy's house, like I would not be surprised if there was like an urgent care attached to the house because this house had everything.
yeah, he's probably got at least 3 doctors on staff, and they hang out
yeah.
at the ice rink that he also owns. Like,
Yes.
just,
Yeah. I mean, this house is Disneyland. It's like this
Mhm.
little city walk or not, you know what I mean? Like it is
Yes.
this little like microcosm
Yeah.
of life.
It's the lost kingdom at like the magical kingdom.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that wraps up Tit or Tat. I'll go ahead and give everybody the synopsis for Snowbound in Her Boss's Bed by Marcella Bell, and then we will dive into our discussion. So here we go. There's no escape from temptation this Hanukkah in this forced proximity workplace romance by Marcella Bell. Outside, the snow is falling. Inside, the heat is definitely rising.
Oh, love it. I love that.
It's like we're there. Ooh.
Mhm.
On the first day of Hanukkah, new events director Miriam Howard, they also call her Miri because I could not stop thinking about like my friend Miri. We used to live together. She was my first friend in Chicago. We moved from Chicago to LA together. So I have to say it was a little bit weird to read a character named Miri. Anyway, new events director Miriam Howard is summoned to CEO Benjamin Silver's luxurious Aspen chalet. But while she's briefing him on plans for a dazzling gala, a blizzard leaves her stranded. All too soon, their chemistry becomes all too obvious. Yet no matter how surprised Miri is to see her loneliness reflected in Benjamin's piercing blue eyes. I can't, hold on.
Yeah.
It's those blue eyes.
Blue eyes.
They're always piercingly blue. Gosh.
Yeah.
She's determined to resist temptation, which means until the storm passes, they must battle their scandalous and ever-intensifying attraction. Okay, right off the bat, I'm going to say I hadn't actually read Marcella Bell before, and so I don't know what other books she has in her repertoire. I think this was a fun intro to like a new to me author. I did appreciate that. I appreciated the fact that this was an interracial romance. I love to read a Black queen. And I did find it really interesting to have a Black main character who's also Jewish. And that's not to say I don't realize that there are Black people who are also Jewish in the world. However, I don't know if I have actually really seen that representation in a book, in a movie, in a show. So that was kind of a nice surprise to me, and I really did enjoy that. I will say I have two main complaints about this book. One is that I feel like we never really got to have a discussion about why Miri converted to Judaism, and the only reason I find that relevant and missing is that you find out about halfway through that her father is a Christian pastor. And so I was like thinking, I feel like we're missing a piece of this puzzle, because she talks about how she grew up, in the faith, and her parents are very involved in the church. Her dad's a pastor, and now she doesn't celebrate the holidays with them because they don't really accept her Jewish faith. And I kept thinking, there's going to be some story. There's going to be something that gets us from point A to point B here, so we understand why she decided specifically to convert to Judaism. And we never got that. So that was kind of one of my main complaints about this book. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think, like, yes, there are Black people who have converted to Judaism. Like, that is a thing. And in this book, like, I don't necessarily think like there had to be like, oh, well, it's a Black woman who's Jewish. Like, obviously
Right.
we need to know why. But the fact that she does hint at this, kind of backstory, I think it does warrant kind of some explanation, because like it is very interesting and like kind of very intriguing.
Yeah.
And like you hint at it and it's like, well, now I want to know more. And then the book had room for it too. Like, I feel like we got
I
a
agree.
huge sense of Ben's backstory and like why he is the way he is. It would be interesting to have like understood like Miri's specific backstory of like how she went from here to there and what is it and what did she go through, and like it just because they mentioned what happened to her because of what she did, we didn't get it. We needed to see why she did what she did.
And that's the thing is, I feel like had there been no mention of her family being very involved in a different faith, it probably wouldn't have stood out to me. I would have just thought, this is something that, maybe she was looking for a sense of community. And like, because I have friends who have had that story that, maybe in college or after college, they just were kind of searching for some kind of meaning and like a community to have, and they joined a church or they joined a synagogue, but that wasn't the story. And so that's what I found a little just missing. Like there was something missing, because there's also no real conclusion to that story either. Like, and it's not me saying that I expected her and her family to like work everything out and now we have this perfect interfaith Christmas, Hanukkah celebration every year. It's not that I was expecting that. Like, I am fully committed to people basically acknowledging like, oh, you know what? Maybe this is just not, meant to be. Maybe this is just something that like my family and I we're going to go our separate ways on. Like, I'm fine with that, but I wanted some kind of resolution with that. And I feel like it was missing.
I agree. Yeah, there was an emotional closure that was missing. Like Ben has an emotional closure. Like he, is an orphan and really has no family, and it's why he kind of shuts himself away. And with not only with Miri being in his house, like does he find love, but he also finds this element of closure of the importance of having family. She helps him with that side, that issue that really has nothing to do with like kind of like romance.
Right.
On the other hand, Miri doesn't have any sort of closure with her family of like, just like some realization on her part, like you said, like, you know what, like my family isn't going to be there in the way that I need them to be there. But look at this. I found this I am making and made a new family that is giving me what we want. Like we don't have, it's there, but it's not like specifically acknowledged like in her thought process. And I think we needed that.
Yeah, I agree. So that was one of my main complaints. And again, not that I wanted it to be a story entirely based on faith, because that's the other thing is like, I think you can have these conversations without making it that character's entire personality or making it their entire character arc. I know I see this all the time when I read stories about plus size characters and it being about how they're insecure because of their weight, and that's their entire story. And it bothers me to the ends of the earth. So I'm glad that it wasn't that either. I think it was really interesting because what I loved about Miri, it was that she had this great community of friends that unfortunately we never get to meet. But this whole group of friends that she talks about, that they all converted, that none of them were raised Jewish, and they all converted and they basically became each other's, found family, and they have the first day of Hanukkah together every year. And I just thought that was such a beautiful thing. And unfortunately, we don't get to see any of it.
Yeah. And like, no offense to the billionaires out there, but like we like to the orphan billionaires, but it's like, here is such an interesting story of a woman whose narrative is something we haven't read before. It's about a woman who, with a group of friends, decides to convert to this religion. Why? That's such an interesting story. Yet kind of the main story that kind of eclipses it is this story we've had before of the poor, lonely billionaire.
Right.
Which, again, I mean, like, I'm so sorry. Like, but it's like a Batman, it's Batman's Bruce Wayne story, which is like we've seen it before, and
he's
I think
all alone. He's shut up in like the big old mansion. And I won't say he has the heart of stone, but he's definitely like on the surlier side. Although he's definitely not even as grumpy as like grumpy heroes go. Like, so.
Oh God, no. He's like actually very charming, and like, and I was like, oh, okay. I don't need to do it. You don't need to do too much to kind of like start liking him. It's very easy to like him.
I think I would have liked this book a lot more had there been some of it that took place in LA. Had there been some of it where it is her doing Hanukkah with her friends, or we at least get to meet them. And then the other thing that ties into that, and this is another reason why I wanted the book to go back to LA by the end, is it's like Chekhov's gun. She is summoned to go to Aspen to meet this man who is basically funding this, she works for the, I forget if it's the Jewish Community Center or if it's like a higher organization, but basically she is the event coordinator. She's putting together a gala. She's summoned to go there and basically fly back immediately after, but she gets snowed in, snowbound in her boss's bed. And they never have the gala. We never, like, they have about the first chapter or two of them discussing it and, oh, this is how it's going to go. And
Mhm.
I kept thinking that was going to be a through line that,
Mhm.
yes, of course, this is going to get complicated because when they start sleeping together, there's the question of ethics and like them, her being under him in more ways than one,
Mhm.
but him being her superior, and how are we going to still have, you working in this position? And there is still that conflict to some extent, but it's wrapped up very quickly. They never go back to LA together, and we never have the gala. So it's just one of those things where I'm like, I feel like there were a lot of threads that were started that I loved.
Mhm.
Like, she had a very interesting background. He had a very interesting background. His got wrapped up, hers did not.
Mhm.
We got to see his life because he, I know he lives in LA too, but we got to see his life here in Aspen. But we don't get to see any of hers. And then they never have the gala that this whole book is supposed to be built on, the idea that they need to plan this gala. So
Yeah.
there just seemed to be a lot of threads that didn't get tied up.
Yeah, like I love the premise of this book, of an entire love story happening snowbound in a mansion. I absolutely like, I think a great story could take place entirely in this house
I agree.
with them snowbound. There just wasn't enough, like, and I don't mean this in like a goofy way, but like hijinks in a way where, like, for example, like if you're going through like they're fast forwarding through like the phases of a relationship within 8 days, and like, okay, in one phase of a relationship, you do introduce the person you're with to your friends. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, why didn't they have like a Zoom, like Hanukkah, where he kind of like meets all of her friends, and that
Yeah.
can be fun.
Or
And then
they
like,
or they incorporate the staff. Like, I mean, that's the other thing,
exactly.
is it's
Yeah.
mostly
Yeah.
just the two of them there. And I
Hmm.
think one thing that we do see a lot in, I'm just going to call it the Bruce Wayne story, like what we do see a
Yeah.
lot of in that type of story, is even with a lack of family, there's usually still like the loyal butler or
Hmm.
the housekeeper that has basically like raised the Bruce Wayne character, or, basically a stand-in parental figure or friend. And we had a few staff members, but even then they played no role in the story
Yeah.
whatsoever. And so I'm with you. I kept thinking like, oh, are they going to have like a Hanukkah celebration with like the whole staff? Like, what's
I
going
know,
to
as they
happen?
should,
Yeah,
because like the whole time I'm thinking, well, the staff members are snowbound too, and
right.
like they're like still working and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, like of course, like I go Downton Abbey side where I'm like, oh, is there a love story happening between the people here? You know
Oh,
what I
I would
mean? And
love
it's like,
that.
what a fun like B story, and so it's like kind of like, I guess, goes back to my point where it's like you could have like whole plot lines,
Hmm.
even if like there you have the physical limitations, but you don't have these story limitations, which I think maybe the book kind of
Yeah.
had, so
All
yeah.
that being said, I do think if you're in the mood for a quick read, because it's just over 200 pages, so definitely on the shorter side, if you're
Hmm.
looking for something that's relatively conflict free, I will say angst free, although there is, obviously mention of like parental death and, being orphaned, and, some conflict between families. And you like food porn, because there's a
Yes.
lot there's a lot
Oh,
of
and house
food
porn,
talk.
if you like house
Yeah,
porn.
this is HGTV and Food Network combined at its
Yeah,
finest. So
absolutely.
if you like that, I do think you will enjoy this. And you know what? That's fine. Like, sometimes people prefer their reads to be like on, the simpler side of just like, let's
Hmm.
get through. They meet, they fall in love, done. Because this is,
Yeah.
it's basically, I'm not going to say insta love, but there's a proposal by the end of the book, and in the
Yeah.
epilogue we get my favorite thing, which is a baby.
Did you see that she was 8 months pregnant
I
and there's
did.
8 nights of Hanukkah? Because I'm not gonna lie, Kelly, I literally realized that the second before you hit record.
Oh
I was like,
my
oh, eight and
god.
eight.
That's so fun. I will say, I do love the device of it being something like, even though it's a quick relationship, I do like the idea of it being this is the ticking clock we have. It's 8 nights, 8 days, 8 nights, Hanukkah. That is the time you have to fall in love. There is something great about that. And I tried to do something similar in my book where I was like, okay, you know, it's going to be the month between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that is it. That is the time we have to make this happen. And there are always going to be challenges to meet that, because we still are going to have this element of reality in the back of our minds. Some of us more so than others, thinking 8 days, what? That's wild. But they're also snowed in just with each other and have nothing else to do. So it's like watching a reality show. That's all they have. They just talk to each other all day long.
Yeah. And the thing is that, like, I think I, you know, with my criticisms of the book, at the same time, I absolutely loved this book because of that.
I did enjoy it.
I think the most important thing is that I truly believed them falling in love. And I am reading this book because it's a romance novel. I want to see romance, and it's 100% there.
Yeah.
If, like, I'm reaching the end of the book and it's like, how is this going to wrap up? And I am literally like squeezing my hands while I'm reading, and just like, how, like, just like desperate, like, how are they gonna end up together? And like, you know, like, if they don't end, I mean, I know they're gonna end up together, but it's like, if my heart, but how? But if, like, my heartstrings are being tugged, like, then I know that I liked this book. And I certainly felt that way with this, you know, like with her leaving and then coming, you know, and him just like racing out to chase her. Like, I love
her helicopter. That. Like, I mean,
could it get more billionaire romance than that? You know what I mean? Like, that's the most billionaire romance.
Helicopter in like a t-shirt and sweatpants, and that's
he's not wearing shoes.
Yeah,
and that, again, speaking of things that stress me out, shoes outside, no shoes outside. Real.
That was probably one of my favorite scenes. Oh, although I did have
one. It was great.
I have one petty note, and then we will do our wrap up with our grading. And that is, at one point they mention, oh, you know, we basically stayed inside and had like an all-day fuck fest, and we made food, and we watched all these Hanukkah movies together.
Right.
And I made a note and was like, ask Becky what Hanukkah movies there are, because I was just like thinking, am I just supposed to assume like this is a world where we have all these Hanukkah movies the way we have Hallmark Christmas movies, or like, are there Hanukkah movies?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know of any. And I think this is one of the reasons why I get such a kick out of Hanukkah romances, is because, like, they feel like these separate worlds where Christmas does not exist.
Right.
And everyone's Jewish, and everyone's only friends with Jewish people.
Only Jewish
and it's
people.
like, yeah, and it's like, that's not how it is. But like, I kind of, like, at the same time love it. And this was like one of those things where it's like, sometimes when I read a Hanukkah romance, it just feels like there was a find and replace with Christmas, you know, like they just replaced with Christmas, which is like, again, fine, it's very endearing. And I was like, okay, this is one of those find and replace moments of like, okay.
Hanukkah movies, all those Hanukkah movies. I'm just like,
the one thing I can think of is there's a Rugrats movie that tells the story of Hanukkah.
Adam
like, they
Sandler,
watched that.
Adam Sandler did one too.
Yeah, so they kind of like watched like pretty, like, you know, like
that's
under
it.
Yeah, like movies that like really probably didn't do that well. Like, I mean, maybe there's like educational Hanukkah movies that they show in Hebrew school.
A couple potential movies that could be Hanukkah movies. So I'm gonna say, I'm trying to do what you said, like the replace with Hanukkah, like just find all, replace. And so I'm like, marry me at menorah, but like that doesn't work. Like, I'm sure there's something with, you know, I know Adam Sandler's movie I think is called 8 Crazy Nights, and so I'm like, okay, I'm sure there's something that's like 8 lovely nights or 8 nights of love.
I mean, there is like last year I read 8 Cozy Nights, which, you know, it is a romance novel, but it's such a good book, and like you know, but like at the same time, it was like a little findy replacey, you know, where it was like Hanukkah is treated like Jewish Christmas, you know.
Oh, they were really into Hanukkah in that book.
They were
like, really
into Hanukkah in that book. And, you know, it's so uncommon, and I could be wrong, but it's very uncommon to be childless, living alone, and being into Hanukkah. Like, I find that, like, I do not every night light the candle by myself and say prayers. Like, no one does that. And also, all of my friends are Christian. And, you know, like, well, not all of my friends, but like, you know, we are Jewish people are a minority. Like,
Right.
if you're living in a big city like Los Angeles, like, chances are you're surrounded by Christmas, and you go to Christmas parties,
Yeah.
and you wear the hat and you do the sweater and you kind of just like play along because it's like you
Right.
want to be with your friends, you know, like that's what it's all about. And so, you know, and I have not read one Hanukkah romance where it's like that.
I
And
keep telling you need to write it. I keep
It's
saying it. I said it last year.
Kelly,
I said it the year before. I
hard.
was like, I want you to write. And I think you coined it as the bad Jew romance. And I was like, I'm here for it. Like, I would love to see that.
Yeah, because it's like Hanukkah, I think it's celebrated for kids, you know, in this country because they feel left out during Christmas. And it's very much like this kids' holiday. And like, so when it's like you don't have kids, when you're an adult, like it's kind of like, yeah, it's fun when you see your family, maybe you'll exchange presents and maybe, you know, on the first night, whatever, get together with friends and make latkes and stuff. But like, you know, never is it this like sacred like
month long
thing. If you honestly, if you live alone and like and don't have kids that you're trying to like, you know, give them a good holiday time.
You know what you need to write? Okay, I've got it. Here we go. You know how there's so many Christmas romances where it'll be like one of them is grumpy because they're like, oh, I fucking hate Christmas, or like Christmas. I want that equivalent, but somebody Jewish who's just like, oh, fuck Hanukkah. Like, oh, Hanukkah ruined my life. So then you can have the counterpart that's like weirdly into Hanukkah, like, and it's just like, I'm going to make you love it, baby.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, great idea. I feel like I would go with like the counterpart would be like, no one cares that you hate Hanukkah. Like, just sit in your corner and be mad. And then like I'll hang out with you and date you and we're attracted to each other. And then you'll realize like, you're making yourself mad. Like, get over it. Whatever issue you have, like
very apathetic 8 days of Hanukkah.
But like that's what it is though. Like I feel like it's like I am very apathetic about it. And it's like I feel like the most realistic Hanukkah romance novel would be like just a regular romance novel, and then the first line in the first chapter would be like, this is all taking place during Hanukkah, and then it's just the rest is a regular romance novel.
And then eventually you see like somebody in a scarf. You're like, oh yeah, that's right. It's December. I forgot.
Yeah. Or it's like, you know, there's like one thing where it's like she's scrolling on Facebook and she sees her friends with kids and they have the menorah out, and then it's like oh yeah, it's right. Oh yeah, I forgot it's Hanukkah. Like maybe I should text my mom, you know?
Write it.
Oh, Kelly, I am no Kelly Reynolds. I do not have the energy.
I will say maybe we can squeeze some of this into my next book, because I do mention in Meet Me in Los Feliz that the character who will be the main character in the next book, I do mention that she's having a Christmakkah party at her apartment. Right. So I'm like, oh, so I could have her be Jewish. I could, you know, or at least half Jewish. And so I am thinking about putting that into the next book. So if so, get ready to consult, baby.
Oh my God. Please.
Let's go ahead and give this book a few grades. And as per usual, we still are sticking with our heart, humor, and heat ratings. However, we also need to add an extra one. And I know the H could be for Hanukkah, but I just have it as holiday.
Perfect. I think that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So heart, humor, heat, and holiday. Out of 10, 10 being the very best that it could be for you. Let's start with heart.
Heart for me, I think the heart was there, and I'm going to give it like a 9 out of 10.
Ooh, look at that. That's a high score.
It left me with a warm feeling. So 9.
No, you're totally right. I might go just a little bit lower because I think the heart was great between the two of them. However, I still felt like there were maybe a few other opportunities, like with the staff or with her friends, where it's like if we had added that in, it would have felt a little more complete for me. So I'm going to give it an 8.
Yeah, that's a good score.
Yeah. Oh, very respectable.
Very.
Humor. What do we think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a harsh grader with humor. And I'm gonna say, and I give it a 6, which is probably like a good grade. I didn't get that much humor in this book, so I am gonna give it a 3.
Yeah,
there really wasn't.
I was like in my head, I'm like, don't be nice, say what it is, and what it is like a 3 at best.
But I will say this: there was a lot of points where they did make each other laugh. They say something that I wouldn't necessarily laugh at because I'm a cold-hearted bitch. Like, sure, like, but so it's like, okay, I'm glad they made each other laugh, so I'll give you 3 points for that.
Yeah, no, I understand, and it's not meant to be funny. I don't think it's meant to be funny.
Yeah.
In fact, they're dealing with a lot of more darker themes, like sometimes with the things that they talk about. So no, it was exactly what it was meant to be. Okay, Heat. What do we think?
I'm going to give it a 7. Like, I think it could have gone so much further. Like, I was picturing, like, I had to imagine that some of the sexy things that they talked about when it's like, oh, I wish I could have just read it. Like, they were like, they made love here, they made love here, they made love here, they made love here. And it's like, well, I want to see those chapters.
Also, I just realized we haven't actually shared our excerpts yet. And here I am asking to rate for Heat. So you said 7. Did you have a specific excerpt you wanted to share to go along with that 7?
Kelly, do you mind indulging me for 1 second here? I am so sorry, but there is a scene with the way that his house is described that I thought was so insanely sexy that if you read it in like an erotic voice, it is such a turn on. And like, this is
the house,
the actual house. Like, she's taking a tour of the house and it's like, the adjectives chosen, I thought was so erotic, but okay.
That is so funny.
This is like in the beginning. Okay, so the enormous building boasted beams that seemed to have come from trees from another epoch. Their incredible girths anchored into equally massive rounded river stone bases. The real estate listing had described it as an elegant log and stone cabin on a large private forested property outside of Aspen, highlighting its classic exposed beam design, vaulted ceilings, and rich natural materials.
Oh,
I thought that,
my God, like,
that made me horny. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm in a phase where it's like everyone I know is buying houses right now, and I'm really jealous. So when I read that, I'm like, oh God, that's
exposed
beams. Came right then and there.
No, honestly, that's so funny. And actually, this points out a really good thing that I just want to mention to people, and that is, if you like reading really in-depth descriptions, this is the book for you. Because I for one, I will tune out. I will start skimming and start skipping pages a little more quickly because I prefer the dialogue. I prefer like the actual characters like engaging. And so this book, though, I feel like most romance novels are pretty heavy on dialogue. This one, I would say, is probably heavier on the descriptions.
I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely.
And when they're describing sex and real estate.
And like the sex, like, I don't know why I read that paragraph and I was like, why is this the horniest thing I've ever read in my life?
I don't know why I didn't read that paragraph and immediately get horny. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Okay, well, I agree with you. I'm going to give it a 6.5 or 7 when it comes to the heat. And the descriptions are definitely like miles above the dirty talk, which is practically non-existent. And so I will read this one section that I really enjoyed because I think it's our friend Amanda who does Talk About Swoon on Instagram. Every year she hosts an event on Instagram called Cottonmouth March or Cottonmouth May. And it's all about steamy scenes that people will submit that originally the whole idea of Cottonmouth is like eating or licking or sniffing her through her panties. And I found a Cottonmouth scene in the book.
Well, you got to read it.
So I was so excited.
I'm very excited about this. I know the scene, and I'm very excited for you to read it.
So I'll just do a quick excerpt from here, and we will start with. When his mouth replaced the hand that had held her core, her thighs clamped around his head of their own volition, and she called out his name. In response, he growled into her, his hands coming to grip her hips and hold her tight. He ate her through lace, and she burst into 1,000 thrumming pieces, her back arching high off the ground while she gripped his hair. She collapsed back against the silky, soft rug, boneless, a half smile on her face while the low rumble of his laugh reverberated through her. But he was not done with her yet.
Oh my God. They ate her through her lace. Like, I highlighted that.
Through her lace. I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I've never read that phrase in a book before. And anything that I can read and be like, I've never read that. And I've been reading romance for like the better part of, 15 years. I'm like, great.
Right, yeah.
Awesome. Loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, you added something new. It was sexy. It was hot. Like, it was very exciting.
Ate her through that lace. Anyway.
Her lace.
Okay. And then our final rating, holiday.
So how much did it have holiday? Like how, can you tell me your rating first?
Okay. So for me, I'm going to go with, I was a little bit torn because I do like that. I think what happens in this book is they mention a lot of the holidays. Like they mention the ways that they both have spent Hanukkahs in the past. She talks about like her group of friends and like all the things they do. He discovers his like mom's menorah in a box, very convenient, along with the candles. Sure. And talks about, the memories that it brings up for him. And he talks about all the food that they used to make. Oh, we made brisket. We made this. But we don't see a lot of that. So right. Like in holiday memories, I think it's very high. However, in actual holiday feels and representation, I'm probably going to give it like a 5.
I am going to give it a 7 because here's the thing. I actually liked that it was more memory based than like showing based. You know what I mean? Maybe because it's like, for me, it's like been there, done that, like that old thing. But like, I feel like there was like something I liked about it because there's like, and I hope I don't sound like too much of a Grinch, but it wasn't like in your face. You know what I mean?
It was grown up. It's what we're talking about, where it's not necessarily like, if I have to read one more, I swear to you, this year, if I need to read one more grumpy Christmas tree farm owner, I'm going to yeet that tree out the window. Like, and I love Christmas. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I love this time of year. I love buying a tree. I love putting up decorations. I love buying presents. I just hate that. It's funny to say, for as many Christmas stories as we have, I feel like there's not a lot of originality in them. Like there's at least half of them involve a Christmas tree farm. Right. Another good quarter of them, if they're not making cookies or having some sort of baking contest or gingerbread, they're not doing their job. And snowed in, that would be like another 70% of them. I love all these things, but I want people to also recognize that that is not everybody's Christmas. And I think that's kind of what you're saying about Hanukkah as well.
Yeah, there's definitely room for more variety. I know that like everyone this time of year likes the Hallmark, we get a kick out of whatever, but I say there could be audiences and readers out there who want something different.
Well, and there's a reason I put on Hallmark in the background most of the time is because there's not usually one that I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually going to sit down and pay attention to this because it's different, or it's such a unique story, or the characters are different. Like they all kind of start to meld together, which is probably why some of my more memorable Boobsmas reads have been like claimed by the alien bodyguard,
which I recommend that one to so many people. That was one of my favorite books. Yeah,
so much.
It's so good. I think about it all the time.
Love that one. Stocking Stuffers, one of my favorites. I really loved last year. We read, oh gosh, I'm going to forget the name, but it's Liana De La Rosa's book. And I think it's called The Captain's Midwinter Bride. I could be butchering this, but I will put it in the show notes. And it was a historical romance novella about a married couple who've been together for like 20 years. And now their kid is getting married. And it's all about them basically like rediscovering the heat in their relationship. And this is a historical holiday romance novella. And it's just, these are the ones that stand out to me because they're offering something different. They're offering something other than gingerbread cookies and snowed in at the chalet and, yada, yada, yada. But that doesn't mean I don't want to read the yada, yada, yada. I still want to read those too.
Yeah. I mean, like, this is like we were talking about that it's a stressful time of year. I get it. But it's also a very exciting time of year because it's like
absolutely
we are devouring so much stuff. There's room for experimentation. And I'm like saying this talking from like my house and my like chair, not writing anything, and I'm like, experiment, do something more. And it's like, I could
come on, you guys.
I could really, what is it? Like put my work where my mouth is. My point is that I could be writing this stuff and I'm not, and I'm a lazy ass motherfucker. And I'm like telling other people, write it. And I'm just like, taking a nap.
I know it's easier said than done. But I do think that just having these conversations and putting the ideas and the thoughts out there, that this is something that at least two of these readers do want to read. And if people are talking about that they want to read it, other people are going to want to read it just because. And so it's just something that if there are other authors out there listening or readers or whoever, tell people what you're looking for. Tell people what you want to read or what you think is missing from romance. Like, it's not a bad thing to be critical of the genre that you love most. It's showing that you're invested in it. You want it to grow. You want it to be better. You want to have representation of more people with more stories. And that's exactly what we do with these podcasts is we talk about the things we love and the things we want to be better. And there is nothing wrong with that.
True. I'm clapping right now.
I'm stepping down off the soapbox now.
I'm saying amen to that.
Amen. That just about does it for us, though, on this book. And seeing as this is the 6th day of Boobsmas, we are officially halfway through. And of course, you can always go back and listen to previous Boobsmas episodes from years past. There are several. You'll even hear Becky on a few of them. So be sure to check those out. Hopefully by next year we will get our Boobsmakkah monster romance that we're dying for. But
exactly.
We can only wait.
I need to spend the next year just writing Hanukkah novellas. Like maybe that's what I should do.
That could be your entire brand is just Hanukkah romance.
And then it's like that one time a year, just I flourish.
Well, I for one am here for it, but in the meantime, we're gonna wrap up and say, on the 6th day of Boobsmas, my lover gave to me 6 billionaires. How appropriate for this book.
Kismet.
On the 6th day of Boobsmas, my lover gave to me 6 billionaires, 5 penis rings, 4 dukes of fucking, 3 butt plugs,